Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 700 Club. I'm Andrew Knox in for Gordon Robertson today. Busy news day. We start with the Supreme Court. They will hear Donald Trump's case that he has legal immunity for actions taken while president. The decision could bump a potential trial late into the election season.
The former president is tightening his hold on the GOP, while his nemesis, Mitch McConnell, has announced he'll step down as Senate Republican leader. Dale Hurd explains.
The High Court will hear arguments the week of April 22nd and could release a decision by the end of June. Trump was charged with interference in the 2020 election for actions related to January 6th. His legal team argues he can't face prosecution for actions taken while president.
The president has to have immunity.
But an appeals court rejected the immunity argument. The Supreme Court announcement comes as the former president moves closer to locking down the Republican nomination for president.
The court's action puts the trial of Trump on hold pending the outcome of its case, but the court suggested it will move quickly.
This comes as a nemesis of the former president, Republican Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the longest-serving Senate leader in history, says he'll step down from the position in November.
Father Time remains undefeated. I'm no longer the young man sitting in the back, hoping colleagues would remember my name. It's time for the next generation of leadership.
McConnell said he plans to serve out his Senate term, which ends in January 2027. McConnell's legacy of transforming the federal judiciary will last for a generation. During the Trump administration, McConnell's Senate confirmed 3 conservative Supreme Court justices and more than 200 lower court judges. And he blocked a possible liberal majority on the Supreme Court under President Obama by preventing a hearing for Supreme Court nominee Merrick Garland. That led to landmark Supreme Court decisions overturning Roe v. Wade, striking down affirmative action, and protecting religious freedom against gay rights. But McConnell hinted he realizes his leadership may no longer be welcome in a Republican Party dominated by Donald Trump.
Believe me, I know the politics within my party at this particular moment in time. I have many faults. Misunderstanding politics is not one of them.
McConnell and Trump reportedly haven't spoken in more than 3 years. McConnell refused to go along with Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election and blamed him for January 6.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day.
The 82-year-old McConnell was at times a thorn in the side of both right and left, which he acknowledged in announcing his decision.
I still have enough gas in my tank to thoroughly disappoint my critics, and I intend to do so with all the enthusiasm with which they've become accustomed.
The Supreme Court will also rule on whether states can ban Donald Trump from the ballot. Wednesday, Illinois became the 3rd state to do so. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
All right, Dale, thank you so much for that report. In other news, Israel is striking deep into Syria and Lebanon after reports Iran gave its proxies the go-ahead to step up attacks on the Jewish state. John Jessup has more on that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Andrew. Fighting between Hezbollah and Israel continues with fears of a bigger war in the near future. As CBN's Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the war may include Iranian-backed forces in Syria and Iraq.
The Syrian government accused Israel of major attacks in and around Damascus on Wednesday. One building reportedly served as the headquarters of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard in the southern part of the city. Israel also struck a number of Hezbollah installations in southern Lebanon, as Iran has reportedly given the green light to its proxy to escalate the fighting in the north. CNN reports the Biden administration is concerned Israel is preparing for war with Hezbollah in late spring or early summer if diplomatic efforts fail. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says Israel is operating in all areas of Lebanon, including far north of the border. He says Israel is committed to bringing tens of thousands of residents evacuated after October 7th back to their homes even if it means a wider war.
We are giving a chance for a process of settlement, and on the other hand, we are preparing all the possibilities in order to safely return the residents to their homes, even in an operation that is not a diplomatic operation.
With the Muslim holiday of Ramadan less than 2 weeks away, the U.S. State Department is urging Israel to respect religious freedom and allow access to the Temple Mount.
It's not just the right thing to do. It's not just a matter of granting people religious freedom that they deserve and to which they have a right, but it's also a matter that directly is important to Israel's security. It is not in Israel's security interest to inflame tensions in the West Bank or in the broader region.
Israel's foreign ministry tells CBN News Israel respects religious freedom.
Let's make it very clear. All security challenges and all decision-making is in line with one of the cornerstones of Israeli society, which is freedom of religion and allowing people from all religions to pray.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh is calling on Muslims in Israel to flock to the Al-Aqsa Mosque on the first day of Ramadan. Historically, Israel has imposed age limits on worshippers because younger Muslims have used the Islamic holy month to riot on the Temple Mount. Meanwhile, on Wednesday, family members of hostages held by Hamas began a 4-day march from the Gaza border to Jerusalem as they hope and pray for a deal.
We send them strength and ask them to hold a little longer. Omer, just a little longer. A deal is possible.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, the threat of Iran and its proxies hovers over a tense Middle East. Wednesday, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee put the issue front and center. Capitol Hill correspondent Matt Galka has more.
Iran remains a destabilizing force in the Middle East as Israel continues to try and eradicate Hamas. Avoiding a larger conflict continues to be the goal from the United States, but figuring out exactly how to do that remains tricky.
From Syria to Yemen to Iraq to Lebanon, Iranian proxies are a serious, lethal threat to our allies globally, to our partners in the region, and the United States' national security interests.
The Iranian regime has influence over multiple terrorist groups across the Middle East. The Israeli defense minister warns they plan on using Ramadan to execute more terror attacks around Israel, using Hamas and Hezbollah to carry out attacks in the region. Iranian-backed proxies have already carried out dozens of attacks on U.S. forces since October, including one that killed 3 service members. The U.S. responded with strikes to Iranian-backed targets. Those strikes have reportedly caused Iran to scale back their attacks in the region.
They recognize that they're outmatched by the United States and by Israel, and so that they're very hesitant to get into a direct conflict, but they will push the envelope because they presume that our willingness to push back is less than theirs.
Republicans are critical of how the Biden administration has dealt with Iran, including unfreezing cash assets in return for hostages and the potential return to a nuclear deal.
As Iran marches across the Middle East, the Biden administration has still not articulated a coherent Iran policy outside of the nuclear negotiations. It's time to change course.
I find it unfortunate that we don't have a member of the administration here. I'd like to understand the logic for their current position, how it may have changed, what their views are for going forward. It's helpful to hear from experts such as yourselves, but you raise questions that really need to be responded to by the current administration.
On Capitol Hill, former special envoy to Iran, Brian Hook, told senators more crippling sanctions are needed to secure the region.
Money is the sinews of war. Iran understands that. If you don't go after the money, it's just not a serious strategy.
Hook has been the target of Iranian threats since his time in the Trump administration, and he continues to have government security. The Islamic holy month of Ramadan starts in less than 2 weeks, and its kickoff is viewed by some as an unofficial deadline for a potential hostage exchange and ceasefire. Matt Gelka, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, turning south to Texas, where out-of-control wildfires are scorching the panhandle. Up to 23 fires so far are consuming more than 1 million acres. The Smokehouse Creek fire, which is now the second largest in Texas history, covers more than 850,000 acres. Strong winds and dry weather are fueling the blaze, which is only 3% contained this morning. About 40 homes near the town of Canadian were destroyed, and a nuclear weapons facility was temporarily shut down. Governor Greg Abbott declared an emergency in 60 counties. Well, Texas is also ground zero in the 2024 presidential race today. Both top candidates will be in border towns to address illegal immigration. The issue has become a major campaign topic as Border Patrol reports record-high encounters in December. A recent Monmouth University poll shows 60% of Americans see it as a very serious problem. President Biden will be in Brownsville, where he's expected to criticize Republicans for backing off a bipartisan border security deal. Trump will be in Eagle Pass, where state authorities are at odds with federal officials over measures to secure the border. Well, evangelist Franklin Graham is also in Eagle Pass. Last night, he shared the good news in the fourth stop on his 10-city border tour. Thousands packed the county amphitheater for the bilingual service, which featured music by Taya and Marcos Witt, followed by a gospel message from Graham. Christian pastors and lay people said they're not only excited to see God at work on the border, they're also praying for revival.
I believe that this is the impetus for a great move of God. I've seen pastors and church leaders that maybe haven't spoken for years come together, sit at a table, have a dinner, have breakfast, and with one heart, one mind, and one purpose. And I really believe that this is the impetus for something great.
God is doing a big revival right now in my community and other border cities, and I feel and I believe and I have faith that this revival is just not going to end here in the borders of the United States, but that this revival will move forward towards the rest of the United States.
I want people here to see who Jesus is, right? And I want them to come to know that Jesus Christ is Lord and that He is Savior. But I also wanted to bring revival to the church, and I wanted to bring all of the churches, physical churches here in Eagle Pass, to become one, because we are supposed to be one. We are the bride.
Praying for revival to spread. Graham also says the gospel tour is not about politics, Andrew, but giving good news to a region that's hurting.
Right, John, thank you. Franklin carrying on the wonderful legacy of his father, Billy, and the Graham family, and they both point to the cross of Christ as the centerpiece of Christianity. Of course, that should always be our focus. And they're praying for a revival in that region. And coming up, by the way, we have a story of how the power of God is moving in the Middle East. That's upcoming.